you really don't need to be a genius to work this out. You really don't need to be some kind of detective. You just put 2 and 2 together and see that this woman is lying through her teeth. I don't know what else to tell you. And I think it's a shame that she thinks so low of her subscribers.
Hello guys, my name is Stephanie. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well, and if you are right now, I hope it will pass and you'll see brighter days very soon. Today I wanted to talk about Sara Lomzynska, formerly known as Young Dumb Honey Bun, and as of March known as the Unpopular Opinion with Sara. And let me tell you, her opinions sure are unpopular. If you are unfamiliar with Sara, she is a young girl of Polish descent living in Britain, and she gained her YouTube following by making reaction videos about Amberlynn Reid and Foodie Beauty. These are two morbidly obese YouTubers who are notorious for having a very toxic relationship with their fanbase, and Sara would put in her 2 cents about the situations they found themselves to be in.
Here's a video of her crying about how fat she is, how she's gonna die, how she is advising everyone to never want to be like her, how she understands that people watch her at an average weight in order to not get any bigger, and she said, I get it.
Amberlynn is so far removed from the real world. It has not, and it will never, fail to completely surprise me, astound me, blow my mind just how much this girl has no idea about the real world, about how it works, how incredibly privileged she has been and lucky she has been to be able to kill herself on camera for thousands.
Same thing. I am so confused as to why we are just saying things. I just would like to remind you that everyone is just giving her the benefit of the doubt and believing what she's saying, because to this day all we have is her admitting that she has lied about
med school.
So there's been multiple times, there's a history of behaviour where someone's lying repeatedly and we have never seen any kind of paperwork. And I'm not saying she owes us any kind of paperwork, she absolutely does not, but I'm just saying it's just nice that people believe her, because truth be told, they don't have to, and I would expect them to just not believe her.
And oftentimes Amberlynn and Chantal would gaslight and manipulate their audience for their own personal benefit, and I have to point out that these women are both mentally ill. Because Sara barely passed her university degree as a therapist, she felt inclined to speak on their mental health and the mental health side of having a larger subscriber base whilst being a horrible YouTuber. And with Sara's recent decline in subscribers, it seems like Amberlynn and Chantal aren't the only ones doing that. I started watching Sara's videos when she was still making compilation videos about Amberlynn, similar to those videos by Bottle and Apathetic Facts, 2 of the most popular compilation channels for Amberlynn. This type of video does extremely well since a lot of people don't want to watch entire videos of morbidly obese people eating themselves to death and ruining their lives. Instead, they opt for a shorter, compact video that cuts out all of the dead air and adds some humor to an otherwise very sad situation. At one point, Sara decided to rebrand her channel and she started making reaction videos, and eventually she found her subscriber base again and her channel quickly boomed right after. She quickly became one of the most well-known reactors of Hater Nation, a name given to the YouTubers reacting to Amberlynn Reid and Foodie Beauty. And I eventually started watching her content again right before the infamous coconut oil rant, where Sara decided to compare herself to Amber, essentially saying how she thought she was so much better than her.
Baby girl, I'm in med school. I work full time. I have a degree. I have a whole-ass beautiful man by my side. I have a family that loves me. We all take care of each other. We love each other. My skin is clear. My makeup is flawless. I am living my best life. My hair is growing. I smell like coconut oil. I am living my best life. And now, I will go further. I will go beyond the superficial, beyond what the eye can see. I am an educated woman. I am an educated immigrant woman who has came here with no language, who is now speaking 2 languages fluently, who has a career, who has ambitions and goals in life. regardless of the coinage that I make on YouTube of your name, I have a successful life.
As a teenager, I really loved Sara's content because, like her, I used to be very aggressive and I would often make snide remarks to try and be funny. And I believe the reason why this type of behavior went over so well with other people was because at the time, drama channels were extremely popular, and with all of the shenanigans going on in the beauty community, that community is really well known for being over dramatic and shady. So it's understandable why this translated so well to people reacting to other problematic people. I turned 23 2 months ago, and I have grown from that type of behavior, and I have reevaluated my options on Sara and her content, and I unsubscribed to her channel about half a year ago, but I still follow her content because I'm still interested in seeing how her content is changing. I just don't want to support it. Last month, Sara once again completely rebranded her channel, and it's gotten to a point where I want to speak about it because I find her content to be highly problematic. She faded out of her Hater Nation type of content and started making political videos.
I have made the decision to present as far away from the left as almost humanly possible because I cannot anymore take the insanity and the contradiction and the wokeness anymore.
Where she is completely misinformed about the topic she speaks on. She is also incredibly disrespectful to her audience, and that's funny because she used to hold Amberlynn and Chantal to a very high standard, but it seems like Sara can't hold herself accountable to that same standard. It seems like Sara is extremely hypocritical and she refuses to acknowledge her problematic behavior. Instead, she is very aggressive towards anyone who dares question her. Sara has responded to other women before saying that they shouldn't bother to comment about things that don't concern them because they live in a Western country and they can afford luxuries like an iPhone.
A white woman on her iPhone is talking about not just racism, not just discrimination, not just injustice, white supremacy, a radical movement in which anyone who's not white wouldn't be allowed to have a normal life or even live. It is so insane to me that this is where we are now. It is so insane to me that the people who have never, first of all, have no first-hand experience of anything that they're talking about. Second of all, have the most privilege in the world. This is the most privilege that teenagers and young adults are anywhere in the world, and it shows. It really shows, because when you have it so comfortable, you start complaining about things that, first of all, don't touch you in your everyday life. Second of all, you have no idea what they mean and what it actually is. And what you develop a habit of doing is comparing your inconveniences of their everyday life to the terrors of the past because you refuse to learn from it.
Whilst in the same breath preaching about how she can criticize anything she wants to without needing an entry ticket into a community. She claims she wants to go against the grain and ask questions, but refuses to make space for an open discussion and forbid her own subscribers from questioning her opinions, and her actions. For example, Amberlynn has an obese dog named Twinkie, which is very fitting. And for the longest time, she didn't care about this dog's obvious weight issue. Now, as of recent, Twinkie is losing weight, which is great, but Sara used to really go in on Amber for her lack of care for her animals. And I don't need to explain that I would encourage anyone to speak about someone else's irresponsible behavior. There's obviously nothing wrong with that, but it is a bit rich coming from Sara, who used to leave her own chihuahua with her family members, who fed it to the point where it became obese as well, and instead of being angry about it, Sara thought this was incredibly funny. Sara now has a dog named Detro. He is a Cane Corso, and she recently posted on her Instagram and her community tab how she can't afford his vet bills after he got sick. She asked her subscribers if they could send her some money as she doesn't know how expensive those bills are going to be. Sara once made a video where she criticized Amberlynn Reid's ex Becky because after they broke up, Becky moved out and she didn't have a job, so she had asked her viewers if they could donate to her GoFundMe so she could fix her car, which had some major defects. Now, Becky was kind of shady about how she spent that money, and later revealed that she actually spent a portion of that money on rent because she was unemployed and didn't have the funds. Sara then criticized Becky for 1, not disclosing to her paying subscribers where that money was going to, and 2, for begging strangers online for money to pay for necessities when she should have just gotten a job. Now, I'm going to leave the morals regarding e-begging in the middle, but I do find it hypocritical that Sara now also is asking strangers online to pay for her necessities when she is known for constantly going to hair appointments, filler appointments, she goes out for dinner and coffee a lot, and she has expensive spending habits. A word of advice, maybe next time make sure you have an emergency fund to pay for unexpected expenses before you decide to question someone else's financial situation. Sara has also openly shamed Amberlynn for always buying unnecessary luxury items, but at least Amberlynn can pay her bills. Meanwhile, Sara has admitted that she can't afford both her vet bills and her heating bill.
People, especially, I don't know if she has any people who watch her or a lot of people who watch her in the UK. I think she does, especially after Tom Harlock made a video. I mean, I found her and I'm from Britain, so, you know, like, she probably has viewers in the UK. I have viewers in the UK, so I'm pretty sure she does as well. But we are currently going through the cost of living crisis. It is incredibly difficult. I mean, you can't really see it, but my hands are like pretty pale. I don't know if you can see my breath. Not right now. You could last night, because a lot of people can't, including myself, can't afford to put the heating on. It's really fucking cold right now.
And still she continues to go to all of these appointments, which obviously aren't a necessity either. And I don't understand why you would shame someone else for their spending habits when you clearly don't know how to handle your own money. Besides the financial struggles that Sara's having, it seems like she also has some insecurity issues. Sara looks like a completely different person on her Instagram than she does in her videos, because she heavily edits and filters her pictures to the point where she looks like a completely different person. And I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with touching up your photos. I have my own insecurity issues as well, and I can admit that I edit my pictures too. However, the problem for me is when Sara goes on to edit her gym progress pictures, making her muscles bigger and then lying about it. And not only is this behavior harmful to the person editing their own photo, it's also incredibly harmful to the person consuming that image. It creates an unrealistic and unattainable beauty ideal that's fueling a feeling of inadequacy for entire generations. Because how can we measure up to something that's not even real? Sara knows that she doesn't look like that, and she knows she didn't put in the work to have that snatched waist and the dump truck with huge thighs. She doesn't live up to that standard that she is setting for herself and then lies to her audience about it. Sara has said before that if you can't handle people editing their pictures, you shouldn't be on social media, but still, that doesn't excuse her behavior. You can't just lie to people. In one of her recent videos titled Why I've Left the Left, Sara talks about how she no longer wants to associate with the left and she actually wants to be as far away from the left as possible.
I have made the decision to present as far away from the left as almost humanly possible, because I cannot anymore take the insanity and the contradiction and the wokeness anymore.
She later backtracked a little by saying she is centrist and leans a little towards the right, which is a direct contradiction of her first statement, which tells us she probably didn't rehearse this video, and for a video that's this heavily political, you would think Sara at least wrote down some bullet points that she really wanted to discuss. And actually in one of her recent videos, she once again contradicted her first two statements, and she's now saying that she is a full-on conservative. But in the intro to this video, she admits that she isn't involved in politics and she doesn't know a lot about them, but then she continues to criticize what she thinks the left is.
So if you are interested, here's a little story beginning to right now of how I grew up very left-leaning, not understanding anything about politics and not particularly being involved in politics at all, to now at 25, still not being involved in politics, still not associating myself with one particular group. However, I have made the decision to present as far away from the left as almost humanly possible.
She talks about how she doesn't support modern feminism because it seems like all feminists just hate men, and that should be an immediate red flag that tells you Sarah has no idea what she's talking about and she didn't do her research.
Because I was a man-hating feminist and I am so embarrassed about it, but at the same time I think it's time that I take ownership of it and say, you know what, yeah, and I've grown from that and I'm stepping into adulthood with new ideas.
She proceeds to ask the rhetorical question, do you hate your father? Do you hate your brother? No, of course you don't. Which completely invalidates women who don't have a loving relationship with the male figures in their life. And if I say I don't love my father, that already completely undermines the point that she's trying to make, because she assumes everyone has the same upbringing as her.
Do you hate your father? No, God no, he's the most hard-working, loving man I've ever known. Do you hate your brothers? Do you hate your fiancé? Do you hate your male friends? Well, no. So how can you say that? And I know that this is maybe like a little example, but it starts at the roots. How can you say that? How can you say such a generalized thing?
This video, to me, once again screams coconut oil rant. It's just Sarah projecting her own life onto other people. She talks very highly of her father, stating how he wakes up very early in the morning to work hard, and she goes on to say that men make the world go round and without men we wouldn't be able to achieve anything.
To think about the things I was saying, that the menace of society, who keeps it running? My dad gets up at 4 in the morning to go to work, even though he has been retired for years and he doesn't need to work. But he wants to because he finds a passion in his work and he thinks he's, giving something back to the world by doing that and fixing things and, helping his family. He feels useful. He keeps the world running, and so do a lot of men. What about the men that are fighting in wars and things like that? Do you hate them too? And I was so embarrassed because it's like, how can you say stuff like that when you can't actually defend it?
Which goes directly against another point she made about how men don't oppress women and that women have the same opportunities as men.
Adulthood with new ideas. I was the first one to be like, men have oppressed women for so long and that everything that's wrong with the world and white cis het men are just like the spawn of Satan. It's so embarrassing. I look back now at a college argument that I had with someone talking about the pay gap, talking about the gender pay gap, and this dude was like, listen to yourself. And he was talking to me, he was citing evidence, and I was so determined to just not listen to any of it, to be like, no, I don't care, this is what happens, this is what it is, having no idea, no evidence, nothing to back it up with, but I was convinced that I was right, and I was convinced that he was wrong.
I'm going to throw in my own opinion on this. Women in general work just as hard, if not harder, than men, because we have to fight to be on that same level. Women pay more for common household items than men do. That's called the pink tax. There are more men in senior roles than women because it's ingrained in our society that women have to care for the children. So they naturally end up in part-time jobs below their skill level and with fewer progression opportunities. We have the pay gap because those part-time jobs are naturally less senior and so they are automatically downgraded. And positioning part-time work as a woman's choice not only suggests that women are responsible for their own low earnings, it also takes the pressure off of employers to do anything about that. Men still control women's rights about their own body, women get harassed more often than men do, we are more often the victim of violence than men, women face constant body shaming in the media, our medical issues aren't taken seriously because we're deemed overdramatic, we are often over-medicated because medicine is made for a male body due to a lack of women in testing trials. You can really continue to go on and on about this, but I'll just leave it right here. Sara questions her audience about whether or not they've been denied opportunities because they are a woman, and she answers her own question with a firm no.
Are you oppressed right now? Well, it depends what you mean. Well, have you ever felt oppressed? Well, no. Have you ever been denied opportunities because you're a woman? No. Have you ever been denied opportunities because you are an immigrant and a woman? Well, no.
I can personally tell you that I have been personally denied jobs because I am a woman, and that's not me making assumptions or speculating. No, that's literally HR departments and CEOs explicitly telling me that it is because of my gender, because I chose to apply to jobs that are in a male-dominated sector. Sara also says she thinks it's incredibly harmful and irresponsible for parents to tell their daughters that they are held back in society, and she tries to make it seem like parents just flat out tell their daughters that they will never achieve anything in life because men will always be at the top.
How dare you say that? And I felt so terrible about it, and I sat there thinking about these things, reading books and, watching videos and thinking about this and questioning what I've been saying all this time, and I thought, I can't defend this. You're right. Me. I can't defend this. I can't say stuff like that because it's not true. I could never imagine looking at my daughter telling her men are your enemy, whites. I could never imagine giving her a phone where someone on the internet is going to tell her that. And they are going to tell her that. I can never imagine saying to my daughter, because you are a woman who is white, you are in some way guilty of something that has happened hundreds of years ago on a different continent to you. You are the issue. I could never imagine them saying that.
And I would actually argue that parents educate their children on privilege and how women shouldn't confine themselves into a box just to fit someone else's idea of what a society should look like. I find it important to be transparent to children about their socioeconomic status. I mean, I was poor as a child and I knew that my parents couldn't afford to pay for my college degree. I've since done my research and I still try to find ways, but I've come to the conclusion that I will probably never get a master's degree because the government won't help me out. It's okay to make sure your daughters are aware of the oppression they are and will be facing in society. As a side note, I would like to bring up that Sara seems to have some questionable views when it comes to children in general. She has made it a personality trait to dislike children, and she goes way beyond just stating that she doesn't want to have kids, and straight into, for some reason, despising them. This may be just nitpicking, but I find it really off-putting when she used to openly talk about how she worked with mentally challenged children, and I've personally worked with many children, including ones that are heavily mentally disabled, and while I'll be the first one to admit that they would often hurt my feelings and get on my nerves, I would also like to say that if anything bad was about to happen, I would take a bullet for each and every single one of them. I don't want to have kids myself, and I generally don't speak fondly of them either, but I do think it's unnecessarily mean to have such a strong, appalling reaction to them. It's clear that Sara tries to be a political channel and ask questions about today's society. However, it seems like she completely lacks the mental capability to really tackle the topics that she represents. She mentions her high school sociology class, where she finally felt like she could share her political opinions without being judged, but fails to see that her social and political knowledge didn't develop past the age of 17.
When I was 16 or 17, I went to do my A-levels, and for those of you who don't know, that's like, obviously high school education, I think, and I took sociology for 2 years and psychology for 2 years. That's when my journey began, and I think one of the most influential classes there was sociology. I loved it. I never ended up doing anything with it because I couldn't see myself kind of, progressing in the field, but I was very good at it. I think that was the only thing that I was good at, as well as being passionate about, and I loved the discussions that we had because it was such a safe space with so many different people. I mean, there was one dude in our class who I remember told me to repent because I was holding hands with my boyfriend at the time in the corridor, and even he was allowed to speak clearly and respectfully, even though there was such a huge divide, and everyone thought he was a little bit crazy because he had such deep religious roots, and he was almost like rude at sometimes, but he still was able to speak freely without being harassed or belittled or anything like that, even though he could offend people and he could make people feel uncomfortable. But I really valued that in that class. As soon as you left that classroom, you left all of your feelings behind.
When you take a look at Sara's videos about these social topics, you can see that she often writes off the entire left side of the political spectrum as extremists, you know, people who wish to normalize maps, people who identify as animals, people who think they are the reincarnation of a dictator, people who glorify obesity under the veil of fat acceptance, cancel culture, so on, so forth. And if you're going to make videos discussing the validity of transgender women and make the left sound crazy, you're just openly inviting other ignorant people on the far right of the spectrum to openly discuss whether or not the LGBTQ+ community should deserve rights. Using anecdotes and personal experiences can obviously be used to form your opinion on things. However, if you're going to make a video where you are clearly taking a stand against a movement, you can't manipulate the definition of said movement to shape it in what you want it to be. Call it what it is. The extreme left. Not the left in general. Extremists are a minority on both sides of the spectrum. We can actually see that there has been a significant increase in far-right terrorism over the past years compared to far-left terrorism. If Sara wants to make a point about how insane the left is and how there's an epidemic of crazy people, as a so-called centrist, she should recognize that the alt-right movement is just as bad, if not worse. Another point Sara makes in her Leaving the Left video is that she is turning 25, and she says that she has finally found the values that she wants to lead with in her life, and she really seems to think everything is set in stone at 25 and you can no longer change and grow as a person after that.
I am approaching 25, and I think that these are the values and morals that I have thought about, I have debated on, I have really came to understand through therapy and through self-reflection, and these are the values that I want to take into my marriage and take into my family life, and I think that it is very important.
And I hope she grows out of that mindset. If you are willing to admit that you aren't open to other worldviews and you truly want to stop growing as a person at 25, that's an issue. I also can't help but wonder if this also applies to her content and if it means that she'll stop changing it now that she knows what her true personality consists of, because her content hasn't been personal for a long time. Instead, it's been analytical. For the longest time, it seems like Sara really lost her drive to make videos that truly interest her, and she hasn't made any efforts to maintain a good relationship with her audience. When criticism from her viewers and questions appear, she will often act as if she doesn't understand them, or she says she doesn't know what she says in the video, which is a clear attempt at avoiding any discussions that put her in a negative light. If you're going to share your opinions in your public videos, you have to be able to share them with your full chest in your comment section as well. Sara isn't transparent with her audience. Her viewers were left in the dark as to why she was fading out of her Hater Nation content, for example, and just making a community post explaining herself would have cleared up so much, instead of just ignoring questions. In my native language, we have a saying that says, "Zij draagt paardenkleppen," which literally translates to "she's wearing horse blinders." Sara only wants to see what's in front of her and does her absolute best to block out any background noise that doesn't fit her narrative. Since her rebranding, Sara has also mass deleted her old videos, but doesn't address any of her recent actions. Now, if I were to make videos where I constantly nitpick other people, I would want to look back on those, knowing I won't cringe at them because I carry myself as a mature person who is open to discussion and other people's opinions. However, this just doesn't seem to be the case with Sara. She also seems to start an abandoned project, but in the same breath, she would shame Amberlynn when she did. So far, Sara has had a series called Therapist Reacts, where she would explain personality disorders by reacting to videos of other problematic YouTubers. She's also had a lifestyle arc, where most of her videos consisted of vlogs. And when Sara first got her dog, she would often make videos centered around him, but it seems like he completely disappeared as well. Sara also used to have an OnlyFans where she promised her subscribers to upload more explicit photos that wouldn't make it past Instagram's strict terms of service, and when Amberlynn Reid made an OnlyFans, Sara lambasted her because of her lazy content that was incredibly half-assed, but unsurprisingly, Sara couldn't keep her own promise. She had her account on the site for a little over a month, not posting any content, before ultimately ignoring her subscribers and deleting the account. And it's unsure whether or not those people have actually been refunded or not. Speaking of ignoring her subscribers, Sara has a Patreon and a YouTube membership program, and the perks include, well, watching one of her videos a mere few hours before it's publicly uploaded to her channel, and a plant next to your name. She used to promise her members that they would regularly receive private live streams, but she didn't deliver on this for months and then quietly took this out of the perk list without addressing it to the people literally paying her bills. You can shade Amberlynn Reid all you want for being a lazy YouTuber, but at least she showed up for her member live streams. Another project, it seems like she completely abandoned this as well, is her highly ranked podcast, PsychFlow. She has failed to upload to this podcast for over a year now, and in the most recent episodes, she would invite guests to talk about topics relevant to their field. For example, she invited fashion designer Jeff Garner to talk about sustainable fashion. However, even in the intro, she comes across as quite disrespectful to these guests. It seems like she only read an article on Wikipedia about these people, and you can tell that they find it really awkward to hear her stumble over her words, trying to introduce guests that even she doesn't know who they are.
Amazing. And you have been raising awareness and changing the fashion industry for years now. I have done a little bit of research just to, get me a little bit more familiar with your work. I have seen, of course, you have dressed people like Giselle, Rihanna, I'm sure many more, and I've seen snippets of your successful fashion shows in London and Edinburgh, which actually at first led me to believe that you were British, and and then I started looking a little bit more into that, and I was like, oh, I don't think so. And you have your eco label, is it called Prophetic, is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yes, and you have recently also won an Emmy for your documentary called Remastered, which I have also seen clips of, and it basically shines a light on the chemicals and toxins in the fashion industry, and a little bit about
A few months ago, before her political rebrand, Sara stopped showing her face in her videos about Amberlynn Reid and Foodie Beauty. Instead, she opted to use a screensaver with an avatar drawn to look like her. She did show her face in every single other video she made around that time. Sara says this was because she only had time to film videos at night, but she didn't have any lighting equipment and she didn't want to film her videos in the dark. Please note that those other videos that aren't Hater Nation related were all filmed in broad daylight. She used to live stream in a dark lit room all the time, and she used to make videos in the evening with warm ambient lighting before, and it looked really cozy, so her viewers just didn't understand where the sudden shift in video style was coming from. Did she just happen to throw away the ring light every single time she wanted to make a Hater Nation video? It rubbed people the wrong way that she refused to spend a few bucks out of her patrons and members' paycheck for lighting equipment when she continuously flaunted her hair appointments on Instagram. My personal theory is that she deliberately started making this content to justify a decline in views, except this didn't work. Every other video she uploaded at the time did have her face in it, and I think she wanted these to perform better than the ones in Hater Nation, and I think she wanted to use that as an excuse to fade out of that Hater Nation content, trying to portray it as if her subscribers were more interested in those political videos, but that didn't work. Even the logistics of Sara's channel seem to lack passion and drive when her subscriptions still contain promo codes from products she no longer uses and is no longer affiliated with, and her videos often contain several minutes of editing errors where she will forget to cut out complete silence. But she used to go in on other YouTubers who didn't rewatch their videos before uploading them. And the last point that I wanted to bring up was that at one point Sara decided it was a good idea to profit off of a morbidly obese, mentally ill woman's appearance by selling merch of her face in an unflattering position, yet shamed that exact same woman when she launched her own merch line. At least Amber Lynn didn't make fun of someone else's appearance for some extra coinage. When it comes to Sara and her content, you can really go on a deep dive, so there are things that I left out. I've decided to just handle these bullet points because I don't want to turn this into a video where I just completely go in on her, and I still want this video to be constructive and compact. But let me know what you think of this video down in the comment section. Make sure to check out the description as well. If you have any other video ideas you would like to see me cover, let me know. And do let me know if you think Sara can redeem herself, because I'm very interested to hear your opinion on that. Remember, all comments are welcome, even negative ones, even ones that support Sara. Just be kind, constructive, and respectful to each other. Like the video, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!